Welcome back to the Texas Football Orange Bloods YouTube channel. If you have not yet already, go ahead and make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you like what you see. Plus, consider hitting the subscribe button and ring the bell. That way you're always notified when we post new videos. And today we are going behind enemy lines. Andrew Hutchinson from hogbeat.com, which is, of course, part of the Rivals Network doing a fantastic job covering Arkansas Razorback football. What's going on, Andrew? How are you?
Doing good. It's football season, so definitely can't complain.
Football season, and we got a Southwest Conference rivalry game here and what will be a future SEC game between Texas and Arkansas. And I mean, the Razorbacks have been down here for years, and it seems like they finally found something in Sam Pittman. So just kind of take us through where Arkansas is right now in terms of its program.
It's a little bit of a loaded question for sure, just because of everything that's gone on at Arkansas. I mean, the 2 years of Chad Morris were probably the low point of the program. Back-to-back 2-10 seasons and just blowout losses to the likes of North Texas and Western Kentucky. So not very good. They pretty much had to fire him after 2 years. I actually let him go a couple of games before the end of his second season. Then they brought in Sam Pittman. He's a guy that it was a hire that was probably met with skepticism across the country. But in Arkansas, everyone was super excited because he had been here as an offensive line coach and had a lot of success. He built some just monster offensive lines for the Hogs and had done a good job. And so people liked him. But I think a lot of people were a little unsure of how long it would take him to rebuild things, especially when COVID happened and you had the 10-game SEC-only schedule. And not only that, but the 2 games that Arkansas got added to the schedule were Florida and Georgia. So they didn't get any breaks from the SEC office. So people were legitimately thinking like, hey, they could maybe go 0-10. I thought they would win a game or 2, and lo and behold, they go out and they win 3. But not only that, but there were 3 losses by a combined 7 points and games that they probably should have won. Everyone remembers the Auburn game, the end of that, super controversial. So, I mean, they were 7 points away from being a 6-4 team against an all-SEC schedule in Sam Pittman's first year. So, wow. The expectations coming into the year were pretty high, and people are kind of feeling good, like, okay, Arkansas is back on the right track. Maybe they can make a bowl game this year. With some, of course, fans thinking, oh, they're going to win 8 or 9 games. But I think most people were like, okay, this program is finally, after several years of just bottoming out, is trending in the right direction.
So take us through week 1 with Rice, because I think a lot of people are sort of mischaracterizing this game because it was close in the first half, but it really wasn't close in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, everything I told you about all the fans having optimism went out the window in the first half of that game. I mean, everyone was saying, all right, they need to bench the quarterback. They need to fire the offensive coordinator. They need to fire Sam Pittman. I mean, it was panic mode for sure. I mean, they were down 10-7 at half. Gave up a touchdown early in the third quarter to actually fall down 17-7. And I think Arkansas fans are going, oh boy, here we go. Another Conference USA team. But credit to Arkansas, under the previous regime, under Chad Morris, I have no doubt that Arkansas would have rolled over and lost that game by 28 points at least. However, they righted the ship. They got things going. They scored 31 unanswered points, looked a lot better offensively during the second half. The defense played great throughout the game, in my opinion. I mean, they gave up, they gave up a touchdown whenever Rice started in Arkansas territory. They gave up a field goal like that as well. So, I mean, they played well defensively throughout the game. The offense really struggled the first half before flipping it on and pulling away, like you said, 38-17.
So what is the strength of this 2021 football team?
I think it's going to be the defense, which is crazy to think because a couple of years ago, Arkansas had statistically its worst defense in school history in terms of points allowed per game, yards allowed per game. But Barry Odom has done a remarkable job with this side of the ball. They've got really talented players at all sorts of spots. I looked it up. I think they started more 4-star players in the defense in game 1 than they had the previous, I can't remember how long back I went, like 15 years or something like that. Wow. So they have talent, and even the guys that aren't 4-star guys, I mean, Grant Morgan is a former walk-on starting at middle linebacker, and he was a second-team All-American last year. So he's a guy that they really lean on. Jalen Catalon is a phenomenal safety. potential first-round pick. He's been mentioned along the likes of Steve Atwater and Ken Hamlin, a couple of legendary Arkansas safeties, as maybe that kind of guy. I mean, he's a headhunter and a ball hawk. So really what you want at the safety position is something Arkansas hasn't had. So I feel like they're going to lean on that defense just because the offense, you got a first-time starter in KJ Jefferson. You got weapons around him, but again, he's a redshirt sophomore being the full-time starter for the first time. There's going to be things like the first half against Rice, and you're not going to be able to do that against a team like Texas or LSU, Alabama, someone like that, and expect to win. You're really going to have to lean on that defense, and so I would say that would probably be the strength.
You mentioned the offense, it's inexperienced. They're building it. Offensively, what does this team want to do? Schematically, what are the compounds of it?
They want to get the ball to Treylon Burks. That is the number one thing. I mean, that guy is a stud. This is his third year at Arkansas. He's an in-state guy, 4-star recruit. If he had been one of those recruits who actually wanted to go to recruiting camps and go visit schools, he probably would have been a 5-star recruit. I truly believe that. However, he was too busy, hunting and fishing to be bothered with camps. So he's a guy that is a stud wide receiver. They're going to move him all over the field. He plays in the slot. He plays outside. They'll line him up in the backfield. They'll motion him across. I mean, that guy, I wish I had the data for how many yards or miles even that he runs during a game, because they move him all over to try to get him matchups to get him the ball. He didn't put up very good numbers in week 1, 5 catches for 42 yards, but that was because he hadn't practiced for 2 weeks leading up to that game because of an injury. Didn't seem to be hurt or anything, but he was definitely rusty. He had a couple of drop passes, which is very unlike him. He wears 5XL gloves. He's got massive hands, bigger than any of the receivers that are currently in the NFL. He's another guy that's probably a projected first-round pick by some publications. So he's the bell cow. He's who they want to get the ball to. KJ Jefferson, the quarterback, seems to have a really good relationship with him, and they were roommates when they were freshmen together. And he's also thrown more passes to KJ Jefferson to Treylon Burks than anyone else, all the other players combined. So he's the number one guy. I mean, they've got other playmakers. I mean, Traylon Smith at running back is a guy I think is capable of being a 1,000-yard rusher this year. Rocket Sanders, which is an incredible name for a running back.
Great name.
Yeah. He was a converted wide receiver to running back, true freshman, looked good in limited carries against Rice. I think we're going to see his usage go up. Ketron Jackson, another true freshman, I think his usage is going to go up. Tyson Morris, a former walk-on at wide receiver, has made some plays. So they've got weapons around KJ and a very experienced offensive line. But again, that youth of KJ is probably my number one concern for Arkansas this season.
And that was my next question was Sam Pittman, an offensive line coach, an offensive line guy. How is this offensive line, especially when you look at the strength of the SEC and, basically having NFL teams up front at the top of this conference?
Yeah, I mean, he has definitely put in work on that offensive line. They've got, I think they returned all but one player from their 2 deep last year, and
Wow.
that one guy had to retire for medical reasons. They've got their entire starting offensive line back. So a lot of starts up front. Some NFL caliber guys. I mean, left tackle Myron Cunningham is probably the number one guy. I've seen center Ricky Stromberg be mentioned. But the biggest thing that Arkansas fans have noticed on this offensive line, I think most fans expected Sam Pittman's going to come in and he's going to recruit all these 4-star offensive linemen, and they're going to come in and play as freshmen, and it's going to be great. And that's kind of what happened in 2013 when he got hired as the offensive line coach. However, this time around, he's come in and he's just reshaped the offensive line. Under Chad Morris, I think the average weight of the scholarship linemen was under 300 pounds. It was 295, 296, something like that. Now it's 320. He has completely bulked these guys up. I mean, Ricky Stromberg, the center I was just talking about, he played as a true freshman in the SEC, listed at 266 pounds.
Wow.
I mean, that's stuff you expect to read about in the 60s, not the SEC of the 2020s. So he is bulked up. He's over 300 pounds. Myron Cunningham has gone from 300 to 325. So they've added across the board probably 20 pounds per man, and at least they looked better against Rice. Granted, it was Rice, but they have shown improvement over maybe 2 years ago whenever he got in.
What are the expectations for the Razorbacks this year?
I think most reasonable people think a bowl game is probably an attainable thing. I mean, last year Arkansas went 3-7. If you look at it like, okay, they would have won 3 SEC games on their schedule, and then they had 4 non-conference games. One of those was at Notre Dame. You're probably not going to win that game, but the other ones were all very winnable games. And if you can beat Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Tennessee, you can beat those 3 non-conference teams, and you're 6-6. They did get a berth to a bowl game, because last year was just weird. TCU had to cancel. So I think most people are like, okay, we need to see that again. We need to see that in a normal year. There are, of course, some people that think 8 or 9 wins is possible. But as long as you're in the same division as Alabama, you got Georgia as your crossover game this year. Those are 2 losses right there. And I mean, Texas A&M is not going to be easy. Texas isn't going to be easy. LSU, they didn't look great week 1, but that's not going to be easy down in Baton Rouge. So Ole Miss looks like it's going to be really good this year. So I think 6-6 is definitely attainable. That's what I predicted. But I feel like anywhere between the 5 to 7 win range, none of that would surprise me. 4 wins would definitely be disappointing. Anything over 7, I think, would be just a remarkable job. Give Sam Pittman Coach of the Year honors.
Yeah, no kidding. There's a sellout at Razorback Stadium for this game, standing room only. These are 2 rivals, and Arkansas obviously very close in proximity to Texas. So there's a geographical component here, but obviously a historical component too. I mean, how excited is Fayetteville and Arkansas Razorback fandom for this game?
They're just totally fired up. I mean, they've sold, as you said, sellout crowd. I mean, capacity right now is 76,000. So I assume that's the number they've sold. They're going to have a very good chance to break the all-time attendance record at Razorback Stadium this weekend. Fans are just absolutely pumped up. I mean, you look at the StubHub and secondary market sites like that, and I mean, tickets are selling for $200 a pop for nosebleeds.
Wow.
It's people are super excited. They've been looking forward to this game all off season. Most people just completely looked past Rice. Sam Pittman, and every time he had a chance to talk to a crowd, was like, I know everyone's excited for Rice, because we play Rice first. And he wanted to make sure everyone knew, like, this game doesn't mean near as much if Arkansas slips up against Rice in the first game. And they avoided that. And now they've been able to kind of shift their focus over there. Sam Pittman said he's going to really educate the players on that rivalry. I mean, heck, I was born after Arkansas joined the SEC myself, so I don't remember any of that. But, I grew up in Arkansas, and so my family has told me, like, okay, Arkansas fans hate Texas. That's just the fact of life. And we're going to see, I think, probably the best atmosphere at Razorback Stadium in at least half a decade, maybe even longer. I think it's really going to challenge, some of the best atmospheres I've ever, been a part of and experienced in Fayetteville.
Andrew Hutchinson, go check out the great work at hogbeat.com, part of the Rivals Network. Andrew, thanks for your time, man. Be fun on Saturday.
Yeah, looking forward to it.